Good afternoon. As we have a quorum, we'll call to order the Land Clearance Redevelopment Authority for the City of St. Louis for its regularly scheduled meeting held on March 24, 2026. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Evans,
Present.
Commissioner Koenig, not present. Commissioner Spencer,
Present.
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
and Chair McBride.
Present.
You have a quorum with 4 present and 1 absent.
Thank you. We'll take up approval of the minutes for the meeting held on February 24, 2026. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you. And we'll take up resolution 26 LCRA 10990 relating to 4500 through 4518 Washington Avenue. Zach, you're going to walk us through that?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. This resolution is declaring 4500 through 4518 Washington Avenue to be blighted and approving a redevelopment plan for the same addresses. This area has 2 parcels. One parcel is a vacant ground. And the second parcel is a vacant old nursing school. The proposed development would be turning renovating the building to 31 units of affordable housing. There's no light tech built into the first phase. We scored the project at 10 at 90, allow up to 1090. The resolution redevelopment plan allows for up to 15 years of tax abatement because we do not know what the second parcel will be. It'll be housing, but we don't know what type of capital stack for that phase is currently at. So we have Paul Weatherford will go through both scorecards, and he'll introduce the developer team after he's done with the scorecards. Be happy to answer any questions, but I'll kick over to Paul first.
All right.
Thanks.
Paul?
Thanks, Zach. Good afternoon, commissioners. Again, just to reiterate a little bit of what Zach said, 4500 to 4518 Washington Avenue redevelopment area. It's right at the corner of Washington and North Taylor. It's pretty close to Bowood, if you're familiar. The project is the proposed rehabilitation of the building you see on your screen. It was originally constructed, I believe, in the 1920s as the Liberty Hospital building. There were actually 2 buildings. Part of it was demolished, which is what is now the vacant parcel. This building has been vacant for quite some time. It was previously a training facility for nurses for Missouri Baptist Hospital, which was just kind of down the road a little bit near Hodemont Tracks. And it had some various commercial uses at one point, but it's been vacant for quite some time now. So the proposed real estate program is the adaptive reuse and conversion of the existing building into predominantly residential, 31 units. There will be a ground floor commercial space. A tenant has been identified, a nonprofit that the developer is affiliated with will likely be the tenant in that space as well. And the capital stack includes owner equity, historic tax credits, as well as monies from MHDC, a Project Clear grant, and some monies from the Carpenters Fund. We can go to the next slide, Sarah. We'll just briefly go through the community benefits. This project scored a 45 points, which makes it eligible for tier 2. Ignore the highlighting on the little graphic there. Computers have a mind of their own sometimes. So it's eligible for 10 years at 90, followed by another 10 years at 50. But we are proposing, or will be proposing when we come back to you all for designating developer 10 years at 90. And as Zach mentioned, the redevelopment plan allows for up to 15 years total, just to preserve that option for any future development. The developer does currently have a planned phase 2, but doesn't have the financing for that squared away yet. So we'll revisit that later. But the project is receiving points for affordable housing, not through the use of LIHTC, but just the rental rates that are proposed. It's intended to be a mixed income project. All of the units in the building will be affordable at 80% AMI. It's expected to create 6 or 7 FTEs for the office tenant. It's currently located in Economic Justice Index Area 4, which awards 5 points. And then it's also receiving points for rehabbing the vacant building, preserving the historic building. The total capital investment of just over $10 million. It's within a quarter mile of a bus stop, and then utilizing those outside funding sources rounds out the community benefits. We could go to the next slide. Okay. And so then we're looking at the financial impacts, the fiscal impacts of the proposed project. Total hard costs are 6.3 million, which would lead to $1.5 million in contracts to minority-owned businesses, $693,000 for women-owned businesses. Looking at the return, this project does score below the low end for the market on this type of project. So we're comfortable with what we're offering. We did model 10 years of tax payment at 90%, which has a modest fiscal benefit over 10 years and then eventually over 20 years for the city and the schools. The nominal value of the incentive is $810,000. The net present value of that with a 6% discount rate is $583,000. So it's just over 5%, 5.4% of total project costs. And I think that might be all we have. I think we might have some photos so you can see the existing conditions of the structure, the exterior, the building envelope, as well as some interior photos.
Thank you. Paul, can you go back to the slide with the more detailed fiscal analysis? There you go.
Yeah. And then let me see, I'm not sure who's
Well,
on the call.
Commissioner Spencer likes to see the graphs.
Yeah. We have couple folks on the call from the development team, if you'd like to ask them questions as well.
Sure. And can you identify them for us, Paul?
Yeah, let me just scroll through who's here. We have Jeff Harden, Patrick McVeigh, and Fred Lafser. I'm sure any of them would be willing to answer any of your questions.
All right, Mr. Lafser, Mr. McVeigh, Mr. Harden, I'll let you guys decide among yourselves if you'd like to add some additional color to this project as presented. Let's see, Mr. Harden, you've taken yourself on camera, but you're muted. Thank you. Now you're unmuted, but you need to turn up your volume, I think. I can't hear you.
Is that better?
That is outstanding, sir.
Perfect. First of all, thank you all for allowing me to participate. I am the developer on this project. I'm excited about this area and what it has evolved into. And we've got quite a bit of community engagement on this project. I think a lot of the neighborhood has been waiting to see exactly to what scale the development was going to take flight here. So I'm interested to answer whatever questions you guys have. I'm just excited to be involved in the discussion of the growth of this and the impact of the last of these scale buildings in this particular corridor here. That I think will be quite beneficial to the community at large. And I'd just like to add that.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Who else do we have? Mr. McVeigh and Mr. Lafser. Any additional information or context for this? And then I'll open up to questions from the commissioners for both our staff and for the developers. All right. Hearing none. Any questions from the commissioners for our staff on the community benefit scorecard, the financial modeling, or anything else that's prevented by Mr. Wilson or Mr. Weatherford? Commissioner Spencer.
I noticed online that the taxes haven't been paid the last couple of years. Is that something that will be checked on prior to these incentives being distributed or approved?
Are you good? Go ahead.
Commissioner Spencer, all before we send anything over to the Board of Aldermen, all taxes are caught up before piece of legislation is sent over to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay. And then on the HTCs, I noticed that this is not in a historic district. Has this been approved as a single property nominated property for those incentives?
Yes, it has.
Congratulations. It's a great step forward. And I noticed that there was some MHDC funding that was presented, but I didn't necessarily see it on the financial analysis. Are you maybe they were thinking it was the PACE part of that capital stack? Could you maybe give us a little clarity around that?
Is that
Sure.
towards the developers? Okay, Mr. Harden.
Yeah, the PACE piece is separate of the Project Clear component. That's a separate grant request that we've made on the project that has been submitted by Grimes Engineering.
Okay. And so there's no LIHTC or other MHDC funding for this particular project. I'm not missing something, right?
Not at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Evans.
Hi there. Thank you for the information. I was just wondering if there's any regulatory approach to the 80% AMI. Will that be reported annually to anyone, or is there a covenant on the property that will require it to stay for a certain amount of time?
With the points that we were awarded in the community scorecard, that will be built in the redevelopment agreement. As long as it's receiving an abatement, we will be monitoring those rents.
We being SLDC?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And as for the apartments, are those 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? What is the layout of a residential piece of it?
These are primarily 1-bedroom units with I think a few mixed with 2-bedroom units. It's a bit difficult to design much larger than that in this space. The building is a very narrow building, so in maximizing the square footage of the building and in terms of the benefit of as many units as possible, with them being comparable to what's neighboring the area, that's pretty much the makeup of those designs.
All right. And I understand that phase two isn't in front of us, but is phase two, is that going to be related to the empty space, or what is that going to relate to if we get to that point?
Yeah, there's a concept design that we've met with the city about, um, and it's agreeable in terms of the design to scale for the surrounding buildings. However, uh, uh, it will be a stick build at that point in time. It will be something that will be comparable to what we have there in the existing building, but of course with a brownstone kind of design that would be more aesthetically, pleasing to the surrounding homes that are there. That's the idea and the concept of the second phase of it, and we're hopeful that depending on the launch of this first phase and the securing of the abatement through this process here, will be much further along down the road and bringing that to an economic model that we think will be successful in terms of start to design.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10990.
So moved. Excuse me.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you. And good luck with your development.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will pick up Resolution 26 LCRA 10991 regarding the 615 Olive redevelopment area.
Yes, thank you. And this is Peter Phillips. I want to make sure you can hear me. I'm a little bit far away from the.
We can hear you very well. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, great. So this resolution is seeking authorization to enter into a contract with Wares Unlimited LLC for the removal of awnings around the property. As you know, LCRA has entered into a contract for a couple of different security services around this property, including 24/7 security services, personnel, as well as some securing of the openings with some metal security doors as well. And so this is this is a continuation of that, as well as also just removing of the awnings from the property that are potentially a safety and concern there, as they are in various states of disrepair and falling down, they're unsightly, et cetera, but also being potentially used as a way to scale and climb into the building themselves. So this authorization enter into this contract to remove those will hopefully assist with removing all of those nuisances. It was bid out in February, and bids were returned in early March. We received 2 responses, and Wares Unlimited was the lowest responsible respondent at $65,771.20. So we are seeking authorization to enter into this contract and get that executed and the awnings removed as soon as possible. I will go ahead and open it up for any questions.
Thank you. So you're saying that people are using these awnings and American Ninja warrioring themselves up the railway exchange building now?
It has been seen, yes.
I'm going to open my window and I'm going to see. Okay. Well, they definitely are in need of a, so I definitely believe they need to be removed. Any questions for Peter on this from the commissioners? Commissioner Spencer.
Just a comment. I was driving by there yesterday. Not only will it hopefully prevent more people from getting inside, but also it will look a lot better and cleaned up. So fully supportive of doing whatever we can to make that area look better.
Absolutely. Any other commissioners? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10991.
So moved. Request for previous roll.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded with previous roll requested. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. All right, staying with Peter, let's take up Resolution 26 LCRA 10992 relating to 4800 Goodfellow.
Yes, thank you. So this resolution is seeking authorization to enter into a contract with Preferred Landscaping for site clearing and brush removal services at 4800. So this has been a long-owned property of LCRA, and it is very much so overgrown at this point. And also, if the commissioners recall, we did just enter into a contract recently for an adjacent property at 4690 for brush clearing in order to clean that property up. And this is an additional attempt to kind of maintain our properties, efficiently and, up to code. So, and the reason I mentioned 4690 is actually Preferred Landscaping. The lowest responsive bidder for this solicitation is the same contractor that we entered into for 4690. That is the recommended contractor for 4800. And so they did a good job on 4690, and we would expect them to do a similar job here. These bids, we did solicit this around the same time frame as the previous resolution. It's early February, and proposals were received early March. We received 2 bids for this one as well, with Preferred Landscaping being the lowest responsible. And for this contract, we're seeking authorization for a not to exceed $236,250. And as a little bit of context, this site that we're looking at is just about 17 acres of land that's going to need to be cleared, with the majority of it covered in brush. There is a section there that has a parking lot that's not really an issue, but the majority of the 17 acres is overgrown and covered in brush and stumps and trees that need to be removed. So it comes down to about just under $14,000 an acre for the clearing and removing of this, which is actually on par and lower than the cost that we just paid for the 4690 brushing clearing. So it is in line with the cost that we've incurred on other properties per acre. So with that, I'll go ahead and mention that this one is going to be funded through the ARPA fund, the Land Assemblage and Redevelopment Fund, for acquiring and maintaining properties. And so that one is what we've been using for a lot of the properties in this corridor. So with that, I will go ahead and open it up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Peter? Commissioner Spencer.
How much more funding do we have available through that land assemblage fund for this type of work? And what are we doing in terms of preventative maintenance, long term, so we don't have to come back to this, in the next year or 2 years, or at least what's the plan of action here?
The only way to prevent this needing to be done again would basically be to pave it, and we're not going to do that. So there is going to need to be an ongoing maintenance schedule, and it is in the rotation for other real estate assets that are owned. It has gotten to this point that is above and beyond what our internal maintenance can handle. So it needed to be bid out. And so once we remove these stumps, the illegal dumping, the really overgrown stuff, it should go back on the regular maintenance schedule for our internal staff.
And how much funding's left to be able to do some of this work? I also, maybe other commissioners have thought about this too, but do we want to fence this property? Do we want to try to, do any other security measures regarding illegal dumping? Anything else that we can think of to protect this asset?
So 2 things. There is a fence on the site, but it is in varying states of disrepair around the perimeter. It would need to be repaired. I mean, there is a functional gate there on the southeast side, but again, there's gaps. There's gaps where it's been destroyed and it needs to be repaired. And so that is something that we are considering. As far as the question to how much funding is left for this type of work, these sites were targeted specifically with this fund because of our prioritization of this corridor specifically with acquisitions and pre-development. There are other funds available through the real estate side that handles a lot of the beautification and, like maintenance component. These are really the only sites that we have targeted with this source of funding. The rest of it has been budgeted for the actual acquisitions and pre-development costs, such as stabilization, demolition, environmental remediation, et cetera. These are really the only two that were identified for brush clearing, just because of the proximity to the other priority sites with this fund in this corridor.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this aerial, it gives you a really good sense of, the scale of what we're talking about in terms of the ongoing maintenance, but maybe you could speak a little bit to what's the plan of action in terms of marketing and what's left to clean up, and how do we get this to a point where we're ready to start soliciting and attracting developers and people that may want to use this property.
Sure. Currently, right now, you see shaded blue, 4700 is as we speak undergoing the abatement and demolition contract that was awarded recently. So they're finishing up the abatement on the buildings before they can get their demolition permits, and that site will be cleared. What we plan on doing, the street will remain Stratford in between those two sites. We're not removing any streets or anything like that, but the idea that we would have the 10 acres at 4700 as well as the 17 of 4800, putting together a pretty sizable amount of acreage for redevelopment, and clear, we believe would be a very marketable site.
Thank you, Peter. And just one other comment. This is exactly what SLDC should be doing. Proactively finding these sites, cleaning them up, marketing them, and getting them out to the public so it's easy for developers and investors to come in and bring their businesses, bring their ideas. So I give you a lot of credit. I know this has been a long time coming, but I think it's going to pay off in the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Recognize Rob Orr has his hand up.
Commissioner, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just to piggyback on to what Peter said. So we still receive inquiries about this site, the combined site, that none of which have really triggered a reaction that allows us to want to move forward. We're also looking to acquire additional federal properties along this corridor and potentially bring even bigger and better tools to the redevelopment of the entire corridor. Our primary focus here is on creating jobs and opportunities for businesses to create jobs, which is what St. Louis needs as much as anything. So we will likely be out for an RFP on this site once we get a little bit further along with some of this work on 4700 and entertain any offers. But again, we're looking at a bigger picture and a long-term picture that will create sites that can create job opportunities, particularly in the manufacturing, potentially advanced manufacturing industries. So to Commissioner Spencer's comment, not owning it in the future is our long-term goal so that we won't have to be maintaining it. We've owned it for over 25 years. Many of you are aware of some development proposals we've had in the past that none of which have really moved us off of the ground zero, I guess. But we do think it's an attractive site, and we do again plan to proactively seek redevelopment of the site in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Rob. I believe Commissioner Evans had her hand up for a moment.
That's okay. I took it back down. Thanks.
Okay. Want to make sure they fully recognize and vet everyone. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners on this resolution? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10992.
So moved, request the previous rule.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. I'm going to abstain, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Abstain.
Motion passes with 3 voting yes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Now we'll take up Resolution 26 LCRA 10993 relating to properties on Louisiana, Grand, and Bingham. Peter, you're going to walk us through that, please.
Yes, so this resolution is seeking authorization to issue a request for bids for stabilization and pre-development services at the referenced addresses which make up the Cleveland High School property. You'll see it shaded here on the packet, though the majority of the work that we're going to be focusing on is of the structures themselves, not so much the field at this time. So we have been working with consultants, architects, and engineers to evaluate the building, determine a scope of work, and so that we can actually solicit and get this property stabilized, secured, and more properly ready for redevelopment, so that we can then market it and, try to get something on this site, on this long vacant site. So where we're at is we are still finalizing the exact scope of work and the bid specifications. So I don't have that just yet, but I wanted to seek authorization to issue this work, to issue this bid, and the chance that we get this ready to go to solicit before the next LCRA meeting. But the majority of the work that we are looking at from the assessments that we've had so far is going to be major roof repair. Because there's whole sections of the roof that are just missing and water is coming in. There's interior and exterior wall work that needs to be done, concrete, masonry, mortar, etc. There's interior debris and damage that needs to be removed in order to make the building safe to actually walk through. And then there's going to be securing the openings as well, to make the building, watertight, well, at least more weatherproofed than it is right now. And then along with the roof repair, probably some kind of a gutter system in order to make sure that the water is moving away from the property where it is not really moving away anymore. There may be also some evaluations of the buildings, some ancillary buildings themselves to determine, whether or not they stay where they go, because some of these ancillary buildings are in very rough shape and are not a contributing factor to the historic nature of the site. So there is some considerations for some select demolition of some of the ancillary buildings as well. So that is the rough overview of the scope that we would be putting out. And we would be seeking to put that out as soon as the bid specs are complete. And so that we can get this underway as soon as possible. Again, I should have probably started with this, but just as context, we did just close on this in February. So we've been working pretty hard since then to get this moving. And time is of the essence. Just for the last time that I was in this building, there has been some further deterioration just in the last year, so that we need to get some of the bones are good in the main structure, but we need to keep it that way.
So are you completed, Peter? I'm sorry.
Yes, I think so. I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions.
Yeah, so this is just asking us to approve a request for bid, and then once the responses come in, then it would come back to us at that point, correct?
Correct, yes. It would be
Okay.
similar to the others. I would, bring the identified and recommended lowest responsible bidder from the solicitation back for approval.
Okay. And I don't have such a concern with the scope, which will be hammered out shortly here after this meeting. Any questions or comments from the commissioners on this resolution? Commissioner Spencer.
I think we've talked a little bit about this before, but it's worth bringing up again, especially if we're doing some selective demo, that some pre-development work has already been done in working with SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, and not jeopardizing any of the potential incentives for a developer that would come in later to make additional repairs and to renovate the property.
Yeah, that
Oh.
factor is, that factor is 100% being considered for the scope of work that we are planning to move forward with. We do not want to jeopardize the potential for acquiring those credits for any redevelopment, because we believe that they are likely going to be very necessary.
Thank you, and thanks for all the proactive work to get us to this point.
Very good. Any, Mr. Wilson, did you have anything to comment?
No, the track and the building are both in an existing redevelopment area that's allowed for 25 years of abatement for this site. So that with the historic tax credits and possibly other type of incentives would hopefully push us over the final stretch.
Very good. If there are no other questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10993.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you. And now we'll take up Resolution 26 LCRA 10994 relating to another request for bid for stabilization services. Peter?
Yes, so this resolution is seeking a very similar authorization for construction stabilization pre-development services, but for this property, which makes up the parcels that make up the Marshall School, which we also recently acquired from the Board of Education in February. So very similar situation, seeking authorization to issue bids from the conditions assessment and other assessments of the property that are ongoing and will be completed soon. We're just trying to get ahead of, once we have the exact specifications and scope built out, that we have permission to go ahead and issue that request for bids and then bring the recommended respondent back to you for approval. The scope of work is very, very similar to the Cleveland High School here. We're looking to do roof repairs, interior and exterior repairs to the envelope, securing and boarding up any openings, and then as well some potential selective demolition of the ancillary building there, the one-story ancillary building, if the scope and budget allows. But the main focus is to stabilize, secure, and protect the main structure. And so if you have any questions, I'll go ahead and do my best to answer.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Spencer.
Peter, could you just give us just a baseline on what type of scope you're going to be looking for in the Marshall School? I've driven by it. I know the roof needs some repairing, but I don't know what the inside conditions are. So maybe just a little bit more detail of what we're looking to accomplish there.
Sure. I mean, there's quite a bit of debris on the inside, so all that needs to be removed. And in order also to get a little bit better view of the structure, but from what we've seen so far, again, the structural components and bones of the property are fairly good. It really is making sure that we can fix the roof, fix the water system, the gutter system, so that water and everything can move away from the structure to stop the degrading of the actual mortar and exterior of the property. And then again, secure all the openings of the doors and windows so that we can keep the weather out. It really kind of comes down to that. If we can remove those things and fix the roof and get the water away from the building, we think it's going to have a much more useful life to the
Yeah.
structure itself.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Peter, are we planning to maintain the one-story classroom building, or what are the thoughts regarding that structure? Is that the long structure here on the right side of
Yes, correct. Yeah, the one on the right side of the picture there. That
the
one,
picture?
yeah, that one would, that's the one that we would potentially target for demolition and open the site up for a different kind of redevelopment structure if it makes sense and we have the budget for it. But like I was saying, the main focus right now is on the main building. But we have some technical assistance provided for a potential redevelopment plan. It is conceptual, it's nothing that we're necessarily set on, but there are some potential redevelopment options that have been presented, which could maybe better use that space as opposed to the one-story classroom building.
Agreed. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Evans?
Hi there, thanks so much. The potential redevelopment, I was just wondering how that's being coordinated with the MLK corridor plan, and does the potential redevelopment of that one story also wrap along MLK to consider the relationship between the boulevard and the sort of play yard that is in front of the building?
So the conversations with the variety of different organizations and associations in the area, like are happening and trying to figure out what, if any, participation they want to have with the actual redevelopment itself and or input on the potential redevelopment. But at this time, we have not found ourselves set on a particular redevelopment in any fashion. Our main focus right now is just to save the building and then solicit for redevelopment proposals. And we could use the technical assistance that we have for different options to create a starting point for that, but we don't necessarily have a particular redevelopment in mind right now.
And is this one on the historic register already?
Yes.
Do we know if it includes the relationship between the building and the street, that would need to stay empty, or is that not a character defining feature?
I'm not sure if I've had a definitive answer on that yet. So I don't want to misstate anything there. I think the conversations about it are ongoing, and we will, very similarly to Cleveland, make sure that we don't do anything that would jeopardize the potential for any credits, for the redevelopment of the site, because same situation, we think they're going to be necessary.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. And I recognize Rob Orzand.
Yeah, just briefly, Lindsay, I didn't quite understand your question. You said historic tax credits in relationship to I thought you said street, or were you talking about the one-story building?
Talking about the whole site, yeah, first of all, if the one-story building is a character defining feature, which I would assume it's not, but let's make sure. But also, sometimes they'll look at the relationship of the height of the building to the distance back from the street. So just, like was mentioned, we just want to make sure we're not doing anything to make those historic tax credits not possible.
Well, thank you for that. So just to clarify, this actually has a 0 setback. The address of the school is actually Aldine or Aldine, not MLK, even though it's obviously located along MLK. So the frontage of the property is actually on the north side of the building. We don't think that the one-story building is contributing towards the historic nature. But regardless, if we sell it to a developer, they are allowed to move forward with the historic preservation with the conditions that they acquire the property in. So if the building is already demolished, determined not to be, redevelopable, and we go ahead and tear it down, that's not going to jeopardize the historic tax credits for a future developer. But I will say that we will put out an RFP utilizing the economic preservation agencies, or no, the protection agency, environmental protection agency. Couldn't think of so many acronyms in all these meetings, but they've actually created what we think is a great redevelopment concept. It includes about 32 apartments, including some 3-story or 3-bedroom apartment units, which is a challenge to get into a lot of, affordable housing type projects. So we have had developers express an interest in it. We think it's a catalytic type project with the bookend of the Monarch on the east side and the Wellston Station on the west, and a lot of things happening along the way. So we will do everything we can to help facilitate the redevelopment of this site once we get this next phase of work done. So we'll be out with an RFP again, not too far off in the future, probably a month or two off, but we'll be issuing that very soon.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26, LCRA 10994.
So moved. Request a previous roll.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded with previous roll requested. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. Right now, we'll take up 26 LCRA 10995 relating to certain demolition and pre-development matters on City Block 129. Peter?
Yes, so another one, very similar, we're seeking authorization to issue a request for bids for demolition and pre-development services on City Block 129. And this could come in a variety of multiple solicitations and phases, et cetera, as we build this out. But the idea is that the main idea is the garage. The garage is in a very bad state and it needs to come down. Now, very close and adjacent and almost connecting is 207 North 6th Street, the former Charlie Gito's building as well. And so we're looking at that one. That was just acquired, I believe 2 months ago as well. And so we're looking at completing the assessments of that property and determining whether or not that one also will come down. And so this is getting ahead of those things as we finalize all of the assessments and the scopes and put together the total budget for taking these things down. Just recognizing that we may be piecemealing it out a little bit instead of one contract. If we can get it figured out, it might be one contract, but as of right now, that's the overall. We do want to take down the garage at some point. We want to take down Charlie Gito's if it's appropriate. And then the Sky Bridge as well that's connecting from the garage. So that is the overall scope as the plan for when we get to the final specifications to put out. And we, let's see here, similar to this with the other projects, the funding source for this is also the ARPA fund, the 23 SL FRF 43. So with that, I will go ahead and open this one up for any questions. Oh, well, actually, I want to point out, and I put in the resolution too, that there is one property on the city block that we do not own and will not be touched. That is kind of connected to the garage as well. So it's going to have to be, once we get to the point of demolishing the garage, it's going to have to be a fairly tactical demolition in coordination with the property owner there at 224 North 7th. Because it's very close in proximity and touching the garage. So it's going to be all due precautions and evaluations of any bidder for the demolition of the garage. We'll take that into account so that we don't damage the property there.
Thank you, Peter. And you'll be able to confirm that all the photos has been removed from the Charlie Gito's building prior to any demolition.
Yes.
Outstanding. The bar is still there. I might be interested in that beautiful wooden bar they have. Commissioner Spencer, you have your hand up.
This is really exciting to see this resolution come before us today. But I think we might need a little bit more detail on what funding is in place and what funding do we need in order to get this demo fully completed. Because we all talk about the scarcity of funds, but in this case, we have to find the amount of money needed to bring down this decrepit structure in the center and the heart of our downtown. It's only going to help us draw more attention to the railway exchange. It's going to draw attention to development opportunities, and the railway exchange likely will not be developed without that lot and that structure being down. So maybe you could give us a little bit more detail on what is needed to really get this, 100% completed.
May have to defer to Rob on that, on the exact number of where we're at, because we are still trying. The budget we have from the funding source identified is enough to cover some of the piecemealed smaller buildings and maybe some select demolition of the garage, but likely not enough to cover the entirety of the demolition of the whole garage. From what we have budgeted from this site and all the other sites associated with this funding source. So we are seeking other funding sources as well, but again, I'll defer to Rob on exactly where we're at.
And in addition to Commissioner Spencer's question, we also have some acquisition issues still pending relating to all this. The reason we can take down the Charlie Gito's buildings is because we were able to acquire through the proper purchase price that's been determined through the process, but that's still pending for the other larger buildings associated with that. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. If Rob or anyone else has the ability to comment on that, and Olivia determines that it's okay to comment in open session, then we can go forward. But we'll let Olivia weigh in first.
I mean, we own the garage.
Right.
We own the garage. Yes, so the garage is under, we have title to that.
But we're just talking about sources of funding, so I want to make sure we're.
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Okay, Rob's going to jump in here.
So as Peter said, we own the entire city block that the garage rests on. The only building, except for the Gill building, which is at the northwest corner. Our goal has been, and we've been working on it literally, almost daily, but nonstop for months, trying to get funding to demolish the garage and the Charlie Gito's building concurrently. As Peter mentioned, being able to demolish the Charlie Gito's building, which has had significant water damage subsequent to the closing of the restaurant. The building is in dire straits, and we have budgeted from our land assemblage funds, because we are capped at what we can spend in the downtown area, given that it's not a qualified census tracts. We have budgeted $2 million towards that garage and have been trying to find what we think is about $3 to $4 million additional to not only get it demolished, but to put the whole city block into some sort of a acceptable condition while we continue to seek developers for that city block and the railway exchange that you mentioned. So unfortunately, we can't really demolish part of the garage. So we either do it all at once, or we do it in pieces like we're doing now, and trying to get the Charlie Gito's building down, and then the sky bridge that connects the Keener West garage. But that's what we're attempting to get done, and we're hopeful to find a solution. But we are cognizant of the fact that this is an attractive nuisance, and we'd like to get it all down as fast as possible.
So can I jump in?
Yes, we'll recognize.
I think we're getting dangerously close to having a discussion that maybe we should have in closed session. Right. So let me just say that it is our intent to find the funds, working with partners and others to try and get it down. So it's a huge desire that to make this happen. It is key, as you've indicated, to our our future efforts along 7th Street and with the old Macy's building, the Railway Exchange. So there is a shortfall. We need to find the funds to augment the funds that we have. And we think that that discussion is something that we will look at and report back when we actually accomplish our task.
And I think that's kind of the rationale of why the resolution was worded as such, is that it may be multiple phases, it may be piecemeal, as we will not be soliciting and bringing contracts in front of LCRA that we can't pay for. So we're only going to be soliciting for bids and recommending entering into contracts for those that we have complete funding for. So if we have the whole thing, we will bring it as the whole thing. If we don't, it may be smaller packages.
And a clarifying question. So the bids that we're asking for will be the whole thing plus maybe a supplemental bid on the selected demolition. Is that how you're approaching this?
It may actually be separate packages, like for the individual buildings themselves, actually, as funding is available, if it comes to that. If we can't, get the whole amount to cover the entirety of the city block.
I just want to make sure we know what that number is if we're going to go through this process to do the whole thing. But I know you guys are working on this every day. It's just an important piece of the work that we're trying to accomplish. So thank you for all the background.
Thank you, Peter. I also, I thought I saw Commissioner Jones' hand up earlier.
Yeah, I heard what William said about, I think my question might go somewhere we should discuss in closed session.
Okay.
But it's not necessary or anytime soon.
And Mr. Orr, your hand's still up. Is that just vestigial? All right. Any other comments or questions on this resolution? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10995.
So move. Request for previous roll.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded with previous roll requested. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. All right, now we're going to take up Resolution 26 LCRA 10996 relating to issuance of taxable industrial revenue bonds for the project at 490 North Kings Highway. Let's see, Zach's going to start us off on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. 5 resolutions by Peter. I'm a little exhausted, so thank you for letting me speak now. I'm just going to give a little brief summary of what occurred on this project and let Mark Speicherman take over, kind of get a little more weeds. Back in 22, this body approved a redevelopment plan and blind study for these 2 parcels. One faces McPherson, another one North Kings Highway. Proposed project was 144 units of apartments, and it was a $40 million project cost. We allowed for 10 years abatement, 5 at 90, followed by 5 at 75. It's been a while. The ordinance was passed in 23. Financing has been hard to come by for the proposed project. They've decided to scale back to a 50-unit project at $18 million. With the new project, with this community scorecard, allows up to 10 years at 80. So the first 5 years will be at 80%, followed by 5 at 75. You can't go above 75 on the second 5 years because the ordinance spelled it out exactly at 75%. If we change it, we have to go back to the Board of Aldermen. We prefer just to allow this project to move forward as quickly as possible. Michael Hamburg is here to answer any questions from the developer side. Mark Speicherman is here to answer any questions on the bond documents.
Thank you, Zach. Well, while we're talking about the project itself, let's let Mr. Hamburg. Is he been added? I don't see anyone by that name.
I think he's in the attendees section.
Linda, can we move?
No, we're moving him over.
Which one?
Great.
Okay.
All right. All right. Michael Hamburg has now been moved over to this side of the aisle. And you've heard the recitation of facts that Zach Wilson gave to us. Can you give us more additional color as to where we are now in the project and what the scope of the project currently is compared to what it was when it was last before us, Mr. Hamburg?
Yes, thank you all for your consideration today. Good to be back in front of you with this project. Yeah, as Zach mentioned, we acquired this site in July of 22 with plans for a much larger project than what we've presented here today, and just continued to run into difficulties with constructability with the existing building, being able to maximize the density of the site, construction costs, insurance costs, and interest rates. So we've really spent the better part of the last 3.5 years after, planning the project and having approvals in place, trying to raise capital for the site, and found that to be difficult to impossible in this market. So, looked at shifting gears to see what we could do to get a project moving on the site. And have since shifted into a historic tax credit model. So this project now will be utilizing state and federal historic credits, scaled back to 50 units, as Zach mentioned. But it allows us to kind of keep the existing footprint of the building, restore it to its prior historic condition, and really make it shine as a gateway into the Central West End. And be able to improve this corner finally. So very excited to be back in front of you guys with a project that, although it's scaled back, we feel like is completely feasible and something that we can move forward with to finally get rolling on the site.
And if this were to go forward, what do you anticipate the timeline would be?
So the building was not individually listed on the National Register, even though we're in a historic district. So we submitted a Part 1 a couple of months ago and anticipate hearing back from that very soon. Our Part 2 should be submitted next week, and that those are both for historic tax credit purposes. We are about 60% of the way through our redesign process. So ideally, we would look to start construction this summer. And it's about a 12-month construction window until the project would be complete.
Thank you. We will stick with you. If there's any questions or comments from the commissioners for the developer, Mr. Hamburg, we can entertain them initially at this time. Commissioner Spencer.
First off, just thanks for all your investments in St. Louis City over all the years, and really happy to see this project back in front of us. I thought it might be a good time to maybe talk a little bit about the challenges you found with the site, and maybe some things that our commission and SLDC wants to know about the challenges with developing that site, environmental, utility relocations. What are some of the things that really push that budget up to a point where you couldn't fully recognize your original vision?
Yeah.
Sorry, before you answer that, I'm just going to jump in and say this is the first time I'm personally seeing this project. So if you could take that into account in your answer, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we just, I guess, dating back for a little bit of history on the site, SLDC had an RFP out on this site that was privately owned. I don't know, probably in 2018. It's been several years. It's sat vacant for now, well over a decade. Previously, it's really was built in 2 phases, and it was always used for automotive use. Because of that, the column layouts in the building are really challenging to figure out how to park internally and how to really design around if you're going to go up vertically and add units to the site. So the pricing for this site really required additional density. Talking with folks at SLDC and with the city, there was a prior approval for an urgent care on this site, and I think it really felt like residential was what the desired use for the site. So we originally had a plan for 119 units that we were going to be parking internally and then adding wood frame on top of the building. As we got into it, that entailed structurally enhancing almost every column with micro piles inside of the building. Obviously we don't have a lot of clearance to get equipment in and really do that. So by the time we did it, we were basically, chopping up the entire foundation on the first floor. So we revised our plan and, kind of came up with a plan to keep the facade and slide a new concrete structure in. And that got us up to 144 units, which we thought made the project feasible again. But as we got into it and again incurred, 30% construction increases as we were going through the estimating process, it just became difficult. And then raising capital, just globally right now is a challenge for a project like this. But, we've just found when we amplify it, with the city, it gets more difficult from an investor perspective, which is something we're trying to change with projects like this. But just because of the environment, it's been a big challenge to get over the hump. I know I mentioned insurance costs as well. We were used to seeing costs in the 500 to 700 a unit range for insurance, and in the last year, those have gone up to 1,500-1,600 per unit in some cases. So those things have really hit us. As we've waited for the last 3 years, we've also been hit with, I think, a quadruple of our real estate taxes where they are currently. So that's been a hit. So it's just, to answer it's just kind of been one hit after the next as we've been trying to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, thanks for that context. Especially with the historic buildings, it's great to have estimates, but they typically don't match expectations.
Yeah, and this one's challenging because the two phases sandwiched together. And as you can see from this picture, we've got a lot of large openings. We have to figure out how to handle from a historic perspective and making the building usable as apartments. So it's been a fun one, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hamburg? Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, is the historic designation a certainty with just time, or is there any uncertainty in that designation?
So we're both in the Central West End Historic District and we're in the Holy Corners Historic District. But since we are not individually listed as a contributing building in that Holy Corners district, it was kind of iffy on whether we were contributing or not contributing in the Central West End district. So because of that, we just decided to submit a part one and get it individually listed. I don't see a very, big risk there just due to the vintage of the building and its automotive use and where it's located. But I don't want to say that it's a 100% certainty till we have it in hand.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Hamburg? Very good. Then we have Mark Spikerman on the line, our counsel for the taxable industrial revenue bonds. Mr. Spikerman, would you give us a primer on that and remind us on what is enclosed in this resolution for that issue?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman McBride. Given the history of this project, there is a few things unique about this resolution I'll point out. Section 1 approves the change in the project scope. Obviously, this project had been before you. It already had a designated redeveloper. It already had sales tax exemption bonds approved. So Section 1 here, approving the new scope, approving an extension to the schedule to complete the project. Sections 2 and 3 and 4 are repealing the old bond resolution and granting new authority to do bonds for this new scope of the project. Those bonds, as you mentioned, are industrial revenue bonds. They're there to facilitate a sales tax exemption on construction materials. They're payable only from lease payments made by the developer. They're not payable from any city or other public tax dollars. And the LCRA is in no way responsible for their repayment. They're there simply just to facilitate the sales tax exemption. The actual bond documents themselves are similar to the bond documents we've used on other deals as they get updated over over the course of time. And they do include the, as we like to call it, the data point, the reporting on the use of the incentive. Happy
Thank
to
you,
answer
Mark.
any questions.
And this is for an issuance of $18 million in bonds. What was the previous
I
amount
believe it's
authorized?
40 million.
And that just further highlights the reduction in scope of this due to current market conditions. Any questions for Mr. Speicherman on the bond piece of this? All right. Any questions from the commissioners for any follow-up questions for the staff or Mr. Hamburg? Commissioner Evans.
Not a question, just a statement for the record. I'll just mention that even with LCRA and SLDC doing everything we have in our power to help incentivize development in the city, it's still extremely difficult for development and not easy. So we need to keep that in mind as we continue to find ways to incentivize development and bring back our tax base.
Agreed. All right. There's no other questions or comments on this resolution. I will take a. I see someone from the staff has their hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Commissioner Evans' comment, and it's a point that I keep harping on is that it's very difficult to do development in the city, and that even with incentives, it is challenging. And I've heard several times during the course of this meeting the issues about difficulty getting finance and the risk that banks are concerned about and doing business with us in the city. And so all of that is very important as we try and change the climate for doing business here in the city. And so my swan song here is that we need to keep that top of mind and be considerate of that as we are looking at legislation that impacts redevelopment and all of the things that are impactful on this process.
Absolutely agreed. All right. Well, at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10996.
So moved. Request for previous roll.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded with previous roll requested. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. Good luck on your project.
Thank you.
All right, now in front of us is I think we're a pivot to our legal team for 21 LCRA 10997, appointing Stephen Westbrooks as Executive Director, Secretary, and Signatory.
Thank you. Go ahead. I was saying, yeah, thanks, Matt. So this is a resolution that we're presenting to you, and you'll be seeing this as all the other boards convene, appointing Mr. Westbrooks in this particular capacity for this board as Executive Director, Secretary, and Signatory. With Otis's imminent departure, starting next week, we would not have a signatory without this, and assuming this board will have some activities imminently, we will like you to pass this resolution so Mr. Westbrooks can start right away with approving things. And the other boards will probably convene over the next month or two and will be presented with the same resolution, including the ones under this particular umbrella. Otis may want to say a couple of things since he is here on this topic.
No, I highly encourage this to occur. So it's important to have continuity and to have signature authority to advance business within the agency.
And I'll notice this wouldn't stymie the situation. If it weren't to pass, it would just mean that Matt McBride would have to come in regularly to sign everything.
I encourage them to do mischief. All right. Any questions or comments on this resolution? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 26 LCRA 10997.
So moved.
Second, request for previous rule.
It's been properly moved and seconded with previous rule requested. Is there any objection to that request? Hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is approved. Let's see, now we have a few other items in our under general on our agenda, including the community benefit scorecard and executive session. What I'd like to do is kind of, we've all hinted at this and touched on this, but let's put a fine point on this, and that this is going to be the last meeting for Executive Director Williams here at the LCRA. I'd like to recognize Otis for all his hard and diligent work in multiple stints now with the city in multiple capacities with the LCRA and SLDC, the St. Louis Development Corporation. He's been here since 1998. And then as of 2013, he became executive director and held that position until his first retirement in 2021. And then he couldn't get enough of us, so he came back last May and is now going to stay with us until I'm assuming, let's just call it March 29, as Stephen Westbrooks will take over March 30. But Otis, in all of his time here at the SLDC and LCRA, has been a steadying presence. He has delegated more in his second term and has been able to get home at hopefully a decent hour this time around. But Otis is one of the most hardworking men and among all the employees and associated with the city of St. Louis. And it's just a pleasure to have worked with him again. So Otis, if you have anything you want to say, I want to hand it over to you, my friend. And I know it's been a few times that you've held the microphone in this regard, but I'd be remiss if we didn't offer it to you at this meeting as well.
Thank you very much for all the kind words, and thank you to the commission for allowing me to serve again, and to the SLDC board. There's been a lot of activity that has happened, and this board in particular, LCRA, has always been at the forefront of assisting and helping get redevelopment done in the city. And my earlier comments about some of the issues and difficulties that developers and developments are getting done in the city is something that is real, and I continue to have every opportunity mention the need for us to have reform, and for all of the things that we need to do. Let's get it done. We can. So I am happy at this point to be able to welcome Stephen Westbrooks, who through the search process. We were able to find an extremely intelligent and experienced individual to step into this role and be the next CEO and president and executive director of the varying organizations under the SLDC umbrella. And so I just want to thank everyone. It's been a good run, and I know that we will do well going forward.
Outstanding. Thank you, Otis. We have some applause coming, and then some of us are muted and some aren't. I'm not muted.
Thanks,
and here.
Thank you.
And we look forward to everything you do, and thank you for championing the call for the change that needs to be made so we can continue this trajectory that we have and increase our taxable base, increase the services we can offer to our citizens, and then increase the number of citizens that are being offered services. All right. At this time, I'm going to let the staff weigh in and guide me here. We have two items with executive session, and we have Andrew is going to give us an update on the community scorecard. I don't know which order we wish to take those in.
I suggest we go with Andrew first if we can.
That's fine with me. I recognize Andrew Knapp and the community benefit scorecard update.
Andrew, are you muted?
I don't think he's. Andrew, can you hear us? Oh, he may be muted. I didn't think so. Or turn up your volume, or give us a test. No, that test was not successful.
Give me 1 second. Let me give him a call real quick.
Actually, maybe can he dial into, ask him to dial in.
You want to dial in, or if there's any volume control you have, sometimes if it's not high, it doesn't register. But now you're muted. Now you're unmuted. All right. Did he depart? Did we lose him?
He's gonna sign back in and, I understand from
All right.
staff that happened, earlier where he lost it and came back and was.
Okay. We'll plug and unplug and replug in. All right. Let's see if this works. All right, Andrew, you muted. Now you're unmuted.
Do you hear me?
We can. Outstanding.
There we go. That was weird. All right. Sorry about that.
We put you on the spot and there it went. So yeah, so tell us about the updated community benefit scorecard.
All right. So this is a pretty long presentation. I'll try to get through it as quick as possible, but hopefully comprehensive enough. So yes, this is our updated community benefits scorecard as of this month. Just a little bit of a refresher here. So the community benefits scorecard comes from the incentive reform process of a few years ago. This slide is kind of just a refresher. So essentially, publicly incentives were desired to be more explicitly used for public benefit and not just a financial gap filler. And the public as well as developers desired a more clear and predictable method of incentive evaluation. So I hired Baker Tilly and we ended up with the community benefits scorecard and a little bit of a changed fiscal analysis model. A lot of feedback was given and similarly, yes.
There's no PowerPoint up currently, so.
Oh, whoops.
We see your face.
And, yeah. All right, now you should see it.
There we go.
Good to go. Okay.
Yes.
So as I was saying, kind of in this results section here, originally there was a lot of feedback sessions that were held, and similarly this time when we made our first pass at updates to this, we sent out and got a bunch of feedback from some of you all, planning, developers, the mayor's office, president's office, etc. So, and then that informed some additional tweaks that you will see here today. So we're kind of at the future part now where the plan was always to kind of update this and improve as we learn, not do it a lot, but periodically do it and again try to become more transparent, digital and accountable, which we do also have a plan to create a public scoring tool after this. So just again, a little bit of a refresher, the scorecard, what it does is it communicates and hopefully aligns development with our city goals. So that could be plans, adopted plans, or it could be other policies. It tries to put community benefits at the forefront. So the community benefits scorecard is our first evaluation tool, which is followed by the financial model. So it puts it first. It it and the categories within it hopefully complement other initiatives like the Economic Justice Action Plan, the new SLOOP, Plan SDL, and the existing neighborhood plans, Transportation and Mobility Plan, and the new Sustainability Plan. Couple important bullet points at the bottom I just want to remind people is that this just establishes a ceiling, not it doesn't prescribe exactly the amount of incentive that will ultimately be offered, but it establishes a ceiling, and then we use our financial analysis to determine a more specific level that is financially necessary. And then finally, it's the basis for a community benefits agreement. So as actually was talked about today in the meeting, if a project receives a score, they commit to it, everything's approved, we will write those commitments into the redevelopment agreement and then enforce compliance at the completion of the project and then annually from there forward. So this is just kind of some data, I guess, on how this isn't, it says to date, but this was done a few months ago. I didn't update it since, but I think it gives a pretty good picture. So projects since we adopted the scorecard have scored like this. So the majority of projects that we saw were residential, and the majority of, or many of those were affordable housing projects. So the majority of projects did fall into the highest tier, tier 3, but that was nearly all the affordable housing projects, which is sort of a feature, an intended feature of the scorecard is to really reward affordable housing. So from there, there's certain categories that we use a lot, transit access, but that's mainly because it's kind of a tiered bucket, and some points are usually going to be received even if it's just 3. Outside funding, historic preservation, and affordable housing, and those are kind of complementary in some ways. Affordable housing, obviously, we prioritize by giving it a really high score. It's good to see a lot of historic structures being preserved, and typically both of those are accompanied by some sort of tax credits, which are outside funding categories intended to kind of complement those other sources of funding. So again, what we've learned we've heard and we've learned that there's a bit of uncertainty around tax incentives and development overall. And so we've been seeing a decrease in volume of projects. We hope that kind of tightening up the scorecard and trying to be more stern with what the scorecard recommends, what our financial analysis recommends, sticking to those recommendations so that we kind of retain our integrity and our policy tools, and that developers have a clearer expectation of what's expected of them. Couple quick things here. I'll just touch about the Nexus study that came out in 2024. This was attempting to look at the nexus between the use of tax incentives and its impact on the school district. A conclusion of that was essentially that we should be orienting our use of these tools around things that will attract families, which will then support the school district by having more students and creating better places for those families. So we can't touch upon all these items in the Nexus here, but some things that we can touch upon are diverse housing types and neighborhood amenities, which will then indirectly complement the rest of these too. So we believe we did that a little bit before in the scorecard, and we have a couple categories that I'll talk about that more explicitly do that. So a little bit of results from developer survey that Tower Grove CEC put out. Developers identified financing and funding, as we've heard today too, as an issue. We play some role in that. And then bureaucratic inefficiencies, which we play a role in that relating to tax incentives, as well as minority compliance and other things, as well as, obviously related to those two things, the expanding of tax abatement programs was desired. So we hope that, we're helping with the financing issues a little bit, and that we, in our part that we play here, are increasing efficiency. Okay, so let's get into, oops. Sorry. Okay, the updates. So why change? This is meant to evolve. Things change over time, new priorities emerge, and we learn a bit about how the scorecard is doing its job, essentially. So we're proposing a number of things, some new tiers, explicitly stating our LIHTC policy, incorporating some things like flood risk zones, and then other categories, which I will talk about when we get to them, but also emphasizing the need, especially in certain categories, for the developer to provide us documentation to prove things that wasn't as clear before, and reiterate that this will become a community benefits agreement. Okay, so, and then just really quickly on the structure, the next like 20 slides, the left side is going to be currently what the scorecard is at, and then the right side is basically what the new scorecard will be. And at the very top, there's a little bar there that kind of just really quickly shows what the changes are, and hopefully I've highlighted all the areas where it's changed. So obviously there's a lot of content on the slides, but hopefully you had a chance to read it beforehand and can kind of follow along. So like I mentioned before, relating to TIF and LIHTC, we're clarifying a few things here. So we're clarifying that TIFs must be tier 3 now. They were tier 2 before, which didn't quite make sense because a TIF is really more comparable to a tier 3 abatement, and that the TIF amount cannot exceed 15% of project costs. We're adding in here a part in the strategic land use plan. There's flood risk zones that were identified as not conducive to development. And so we've included this to kind of be in sync with that plan, unless there's mitigating measures taken. Slightly a tall thing to kind of figure out, but we'll get to that one if we have to. One big change here is previously our LIHTC policy was to, no matter what they scored, to give them a 15-year abatement, first 10 years at 90%, the next 5 years at 50%. And I think we had been thinking this too, but we received feedback that the last 5 years really are actually more important to be higher than the first few years. So we're now just going to be going to, as long as they score high enough, a 15-year 90% abatement for LIHTC projects. And then I guess to just clarify a little bit, a lot of times these affordable housing projects end up getting 70 points, 80 points sometimes, and so they could qualify for a longer abatement, but their compliance window for the tax credits and other things is what we're trying to align with, so that after the 15 years, they can come back when they're rehabbing their property and kind of re-up the incentives if able to. And then, yeah, again, community benefits agreements. So here's the new tiers. We've added a tier and made another change. So tier 2 previously was 10 years, followed by another 5 years at 50%. We've now removed that last 5 years and made tier 3 that. So while we've added a tier, and the highest tier I'll point out is the full, basically a max abatement that we allow, 25 years, 90%. Again, we would dial that in with the financial analysis, but part of the reason why we're doing this here is that a lot of projects that ended up in the tier 2 category, we didn't actually offer them 15-year abatements. So because of the financial analysis in almost all cases. So we're kind of aligning that second tier with what we see in reality a bit, and increasing the cap of the highest scoring projects, of which so far mainly affordable housing projects are the only ones that get there. The next 3 slides are just showing, the kind of the condensed scorecards next to each other, and then just highlighting what's changed to kind of prep you. So there's some changes in point totals. There's new categories, sustainability, greenway access, development intensity, family housing, accessible housing, and there's a couple name changes as well as some details that'll change. So just pointing these out to get your brain going, and we will talk about each one in a second. Okay, so capital investment, this is a category intent on essentially just rewarding the investment itself. Really all we're doing here is slightly changing the bottom end to start at 2 points instead of 1 point, and slightly reducing and making the buckets a little bit more clear, a little bit more intuitive. So 10 to 25 to 50 to 75 and over 75 million feels a bit more intuitive than what we had before. And we also just bumped this up. So the very largest projects, the most significant investments can actually get 10 points now. And then just makes that point total a little bit more consistent with other categories which score up to 10 versus a 7. Public infrastructure improvements. So not really anything mechanically changing here, except that we are referencing the transportation and mobility plan and its street design framework. So before we kind of were a little bit open if they were making some sort of a public infrastructure improvement. They told us what they were doing and gave us the amount, and we said, okay. But now they will do that, and they will provide documentation of that, which we're reiterating here. But they also must be consistent with that street design framework if that's a portion of the property or in relation to the property where that would apply. So we think that does a good job of reiterating what we need in this category and adding some additional constraints in alignment with our new plan. So job creation, obviously we value the production of new jobs. We are clarifying a little bit of the language and making it more explicit the way that we assess this category. So we assess part-time jobs as half of a job, so we're making that more explicit. And then also just noting for people so that it's absolutely clear that annually you'll need to report how many jobs there are, and we will, which could impact your incentive if you are well under what you promised. And then again, kind of like bumping up this category to 10 points to make it just a little bit more intuitive overall, but then making that highest category a higher level of job, so 80 plus. Before we only had 60 plus, which I think makes a little bit more sense too. Quality jobs, not really anything changing here. It's still 80% of your jobs must be paying a livable wage. We just clarify that we're referencing the city's annual livable wage rate, which is adjusted every year. So we refer to that. And then clarify that part-time employees will not be counted for this, because we can't guarantee that even if they're paid a livable wage at this rate, that their full-time wages are meeting it. So target industry, no change. We think this is okay. There has been some questions about which industries we use. As I've mentioned, and you'll see, we try to reference to other things, other authoritative documents or policy documents. And so this comes out of the Jobs 2030 plan. And so until there's some other sort of thing that prompts us to change, we'll just go with this. So transit access. This is one of my favorite categories, and parts of it were a little bit tricky as the North-South Metrolink planned expansion obviously went into various iterations, different planned routes, and now is being considered for BRT. So we just kind of broadened the language here a bit to hopefully is good enough wording that any future alignment station, so that could be BRT, that could be rail. And then we just clarified that if some other route becomes as frequent as the Grand 70 line, that you could also get points for being near a stop there too. And then again, just bump this up from 9 points to 10 points, which we think makes more sense. Geography, so this is our economic justice index category, mainly attempting to, again, this is our second highest point total you can get besides affordable housing. It's trying to encourage investment in places of high need and opportunity. And the only thing we did here was just clarify the language a bit. So still the same thing, still the same index. In theory, in the future, if there's some other index if this gets updated or there's some other index the city wants to use, we could update it. But right now, this is what we're doing. Business enterprise status. This previously was our MWBE category. So we broadened this slightly and included veteran-owned businesses. We've had a couple veteran-owned developers come through, and so just adding a little bit there, which we think is a good thing. And also clarified that it can be the applicant itself or expected tenants. They would need to prove that in some way that there's commitment, or we would be enforcing compliance annually, but just kind of making that a little bit more clear for developers. Vacancy and infill. This is one that changed, and a lot of discussion was had around this one. So previously, we only awarded points for vacant buildings being renovated. Now we have included some measure of infill. So not just any infill project, but something that completes a block. So we've kind of defined that here. Completion of a block is defined as constructing a building on the remaining unimproved lots of a full city block. You can get the same 5 points for that. And then we're also adding a couple additional points to try to get surface lots redeveloped into denser structures. So we think that's a good one, maybe particularly downtown where there are surface lots we want redeveloped that maybe otherwise wouldn't get a lot of points on the scorecard. This is a way for them to get a couple more points in a way that we think is valuable. Other public funding, we just changed the name of this category, so it's outside public or outside funding, which was a little bit vague. So it's other public funding now, and we kind of just added some language here to clarify this is things like MDFB and LIHTC. And then we bumped it up to 3 points to make it similar to the other categories that start at 3 points. So slight change. Obviously, and I'll touch upon this later, we're adding points here, but we think that that's justified, and I will talk about it later. Historic preservation, no big change here, but we add in a building can have a historic designation and get points. That wasn't explicit before. It was just only simply based on age, or a building that comes that is within a local or national historic district. So I think that's just slightly more inclusive of like the intent here, and no change in the points. Environmental remediation, so still important. This came up a number of times, wasn't a category that was often used, partially maybe because of the ambiguity, but we just clarified that we need a phase 1 and a phase 2, and that we will be requiring enrollment in the state's voluntary cleanup program. Some of the feedback we received on that is that that takes a long time and that is costly, which we agree with, but potentially, but we need something to enforce compliance here. So a promise to us, with us not really having necessarily the expertise or the capacity to enforce compliance on this, we're going to be relying on the state. And I think that we'll be kind of helping our relationship with the state by generating more projects that get into their program, and into their database as well. So no change to the points, just a change in what's required, and hopefully making that more clear. Sustainability, this is a new category. We discussed this one a lot too. We thought about doing various different programs like LEAD and otherwise, but ultimately landed on just rewarding points if someone is completing some of the priority actions in the sustainability and climate plan. We think this is like a simpler way. There may be some interpretation as to if the project really is implementing a priority action or not, but we think this is a good way to kind of bring attention to the plan and attempt to get people to incorporate elements of it into their developments. LRA properties. This doesn't really get used much, and we don't think that it necessarily will a lot more. We hope it does, and that's kind of why we decided to double the points here. Likely, given where most LRA property is, it will receive a lot of points and be sufficiently scoring on the scorecard, but we're hoping that this is sort of an attention grabber and gets people to consider our LRA properties for redevelopment a bit more, and rewarding them for doing so. Community benefits contribution, again, not used much. We just made it a little bit more specific on what it's going to be, what possibilities there are here, and then just adding a smaller bucket in between the point totals there. So 100, 200, 500, and on up. Whereas before, we had jumping from 100 to 500 ended up being, a significant cost to certain projects. And so just kind of adding something in between for the medium-sized projects that can become feasible. Alignment with neighborhood plans, no change. We talked about maybe rewarding different points for implementing more than one item from a plan, but attempting to keep it relatively straightforward right now, and then just providing specifying that it must be an adopted city plan, and then providing a link where you can find those so that we don't have confusion on what qualifies as a plan. Commercial corridors. So the criteria is slightly different between residential projects and mixed use. So I've got two slides here. But the changes to the commercial corridors are added a link to the map so it's easier to find. And then as well as naming the main streets that are included. And we got a good set of feedback from planning asking to include the great streets. So we've got 3 more corridors that can also get that 2-point bonus here too. So. And then residential specifically is if the project is within 2 blocks of one of these corridors. So, just attempting to create some sort of density around the corridor, which is good for, circulation and access and commerce and things like that. So getting people to live around the corridors. And then for mixed use, this is specifically if they're on the corridor itself. So bringing retail or commercial activity to the ground floor on the corridor itself, and then typically, residential above. Employment districts, so commercial projects don't have a commercial corridor category. They have employment districts. We just added a link. So again, it's more obvious when you are within an employment district or not. New category. So this is being treated a little bit like access to a bus stop. So only 3 points. And there are a decent amount of the city that is close to a greenway. But bringing this up as we do want development around existing greenways so that they're used more, and they're used as an economic development tool, and future greenways like the Brookline Greenway. So if you're within 2 blocks of a greenway, you can get 3 points. I think this is a good addition, and yeah. Development intensity. So this is really about the strategic land use plan, which calls for small ranges of density measured in stories in certain areas. So the corridors, nodes, and otherwise. So we essentially, those aren't going to be required, but they're kind of prescriptions to guide development towards the character that the sloop desires. And it does include other things like parking. So whether that's in front of the building or the side, or not provided at all. And so if development meets those kind of prescriptions, they will get a flat 5 points. I mean, again, we think this is good because it ties back to the strategic land use plan, and it just rewards projects that are able to kind of add to that desired character and intensity. Family housing. This can be a little bit tied back to, a number of things that have been talked about, but also the Nexus study about, providing more housing that families can live in. I think the reality for projects that typically come for tax abatement is that often they're bigger buildings with apartments and things like that. Some scattered site developments this would kind of apply to more so, but often it's just not always possible to add 3+ bedroom units to a project. But when possible, we want to reward that so that families can have a new unit or some to live in. So we have a little bit of a tiering system here where 10 to 20% of the units, if they're 3 or more bedrooms, is 3 points, and then 5 points for over 20%. So hopefully, at the very least, this emphasizes our desire to build more family housing and attract families, and hopefully it does get used, but maybe not. Oof. only two more. So accessible housing. This was kind of a late addition where it's kind of I learned about this through our feedback process actually, where right now the city's code requires that 2% of units must be type A, which means that they are fully accessible within the unit to someone that has accessibility needs. And then let's see. Below that, there's no requirement to provide these types of units. So working with David Newberger, we kind of came up with this criteria here where we'll use that type A unit definition and the criteria that they use to define those units. And if a project provides more than 5% of their units meeting that criteria, they'll get 3 points, and then 10% gets 5 points. So a new category may not always be possible or feasible, financially feasible to do this, but hopefully we do get a few more units at least produced by way of adding this category. And then finally, affordable housing, no change to this, the only change is actually we clarified that the way that we calculate AMI, and then we gave a link to a calculator that could kind of do it for them. I didn't have my highlights here, sorry about that, but that's the only real change, no change to the table or the total points. This may not mean a lot, but these are the old scorecards. Here will be the new scorecards. So there are more categories, there are more points available. There is the potential, at least in your head, risk of kind of diluting or making too many points available without changing the tiers substantially. But I went ahead and rescored all the projects according to what this new scorecard would be. And I think there's some good conclusions to take from it. So on the left side, we have the chart that I showed you before, where the majority of projects reached tier 3. Mostly those were affordable, though. A lot were just in tier 1 and tier 2, with the majority being in tier 1, so just barely getting over the hump. If I rescore all the project with our new categories, it changes a bit, and most of the change is from tier 3 to tier 4, so the highest level. But those were all except for I think one, were all affordable housing projects. So they already scored really, really high, and they just get bumped up to that very top tier. No real change in the abatement that they'd be offered. And then we did have one project drop below into no abatement level, and then just kind of an even-ish split between tier 1 and tier 2. So one project fell below tier 1, 6 moved up one tier, and then one notable outlier was Albion West End project actually went up 2 tiers, and that was driven by vacancy and infill. So it was a former surface parking lot being developed near a greenway, and the development intensity was very intense and met the SLOOP recommendations there. So it got a lot more points, which I think actually is reflective of the particular characteristics of that project. So
this has been very helpful, Andrew.
Yep.
I appreciate it, and I think we commented on this some time ago that this is a methodology that now other cities are coming to us to see how we're doing it and are taking our lead in this area. So I think it's outstanding, and everything can benefit from a review and a refresh. So thank you so much for all the time that you spent handling all this. Want to be mindful of all the commissioners' time. I don't believe this calls for a vote. Is that correct? It does not?
That's correct. It does not.
Okay. What I'd like to do, and we have one more item on our agenda that's going to take us to executive session. I'd like to take that up. And then, I think if we can mull over and digest all this, because if we open this up for questions, and, we're looking at 6 o'clock, and I'll get yelled at home, which maybe we want. But so this time I would entertain a motion to go into executive sessions for the reasons that either David or Olivia are going to illuminate for us.
That would be pursuant to revised Missouri statute 610-021 subsections 2 and 12.
Commissioner Jennings.
I will so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Evans. Commissioner.
Sorry, couldn't find the mute button.
Commissioner Spencer. Commissioner Spencer.
You're on mute.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
And Chair McBride.
Now you see what I'm talking about. Aye. All right, we'll go to executive session.
Okay. I got the same. Oh, yeah. Is everybody back?
Is everyone back?
I believe so.
All right.
Yep.
Is there anything else left in open agenda?
No, sir.
All right. Then at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. We've concluded all the items on our agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
I should be on the agenda. It's too late now.